All right, this question comes from Cameron. Cameron, this is a stellar question. So first off, he says, "Hi Elizabeth, thank you for your great content. I really appreciate the knowledge you're sharing. I appreciate you asking questions, and I appreciate you appreciating. So my question is regarding low budget, short-term campaigns to bring visibility to a new listing and sell a fixed amount of goods without exceeding the campaign budget. It's a very tall order, but I'm going to give you some answers. So while still meeting sales velocity and profitability goals, again, tall order, but I'm going to give you some context and stuff. For example, let's say I have a SKU that has become cost prohibitive and I am discontinuing it. However, I still want to create a listing and sell out the SKU before it's discontinued. I have 2,000 units, a lifetime ad budget of $2,000 for this SKU, and my goal is to sell out in 20 weeks or less. How do I determine which campaigns to run to gain visibility and boost rank in a limited amount of time while still staying within my budget to remain profitable? Is it better to extend the budget throughout a longer period of time or all within the first couple weeks to try and achieve ranking quickly? Thanks again, Cameron. Or Cam. All right, so here's the context. Completely ignore ranking in this case. You don't care about ranking. You care about sales. I have a whole, I put out a newsletter, and if I can find the document, or maybe I'll put it out on LinkedIn somewhere, the newsletter is basically the fact that ranking does not equal sales, sales equals sales. Ranking is a means to an end, because with ranking you get visibility for your products, and therefore you drive sessions to the listing, and those sessions through the conversion rate will translate into the actual sales numbers. But rankings is a means to an end, and oftentimes when you are running for ranking, your ad cost can be higher, and profitability metrics aren't always there unless you have like an absolutely banger conversion rate. Now, if you're able to, like, say, lower down your pricing or do something else, or maybe it sounds like you're creating a new listing, which is also going to come with some kind of issues because you won't have reviews on it. So I'm not sure how that is. And again, long term, it's not going to be worth it for you to pay for things like Vine, because you're not going to see any really long-term benefits from this. Although if you're selling out in 20 weeks, that's going to be, it's not like you're trying to sell it in 2 weeks. Okay, so here is the context on this. Let's do some mathematics here, okay? So if you have, I don't even need to divide this, but you have 2,000 products and you have a lifetime budget of $2,000, which means you can afford $1 per conversion if all we're going to do is sell through on the ads. Now, yes, could you gain some organic ranking and do it that way? Yes, but you do kind of want to take into account. Now, I don't know the actual price point of these products. So what you can do is you can take that one and you can divide it by the price point of the products. And that would give you technically what kind of ACoS targets you would have for this particular thing. The other thing that you're going to want to take into account is the conversion rates of the product. If you've been selling it before, you would kind of have an idea on this, but how you do this is, say it's on average 10% conversion rate. So you take 1 divided by 0.1 and that gives you 10. So in this case, like say you had a 15% conversion rate, that would be 1 divided by 0.15, which is going to give you 6.66 in a billion. And then you could say, okay, on average, let's do it easy numbers. Let's say we have a 10% conversion rate. So we had on average 10 clicks to be able to generate an order. Then we can take 1, so that is the cost that you can afford per conversion, and you can divide that by the 10 that we need, and you can see like, oh, great, I can spend 10 cents for every single click, and then on average it's going to equal out to my $1 budget. Now, it sounds like what you're doing is saying, okay, great, I want to be able to rank somewhere so then I can get some kind of organic ranking, so it doesn't all have to be driven through ads, which is great in theory. But the problem is most likely you're going to have to pay a much higher bid for something. Like I would say on minimum, you're probably going to have to be spending a 50-cent bid. So 50 cents times 10 is going to equal $5. So $5 for one singular order, and then all of a sudden your $5 are eaten up. So then if you take your $2,000 and you divide that by $5, you only got 400 sales, and you're trying to move 2,000 units. So you can see how that mathematics doesn't work up, and at the end of it, you're kind of screwed because you might be stuck there. Like you might have enough ranking to do that, but the problem is if we had $2,000 or 2,000 units, and we had to subtract, we said we could we're assuming we can move 400 units. That is, why did that math not work out? My calculator is getting messed up. All right, so you minus their 400 units, and then we still have 16,000 units to move. Where if we take 400 and we divide it by 16,000 units, that gives us a ratio, an ad sale percentage, meaning what percentage of the total orders are coming from ads. That's only a 25%. And in this case, if you're trying to bang it out and rank products, you might be able to get to a 50-50 split. In that case, we need to be able to move, say, 1,000 units by ads at the minimum if we were pushing it out there. And if you can only afford to spend $1 for all of those conversions, that still only gives you $2 in the conversions. And if we're assuming an average of a 10% conversion rate, so now we only have to move 1,000 units, and we set a 10% conversion rate. Again, I don't know your cost of goods, so that's going to change that there. So what was it? We said 10%, so now we can spend $2 per unit sold, and then we're going to multiply that by 1,000. I mean, maybe you could work out the math that way. I'm not sure, but you can see how that gets kind of crazy. So I just showed you why it can get kind of crazy and why going after ranking is probably not your best bet, because the numbers are not really going to work. And the thing with ranking is oftentimes you're giving up in the short term to be able to have a long-term gain, because you're going to continuously replenish stock and you're going to see those residual benefits on the back end. You have no long-term benefits of ranking. So what you have to do is you have to figure out, so your question is not necessarily where or can I rank or where should I rank. Your question is, how can I sell? Again, I'm going to assume that at the very minimum, we're going to be able to get 70% of the units. So I'm going to take 2,000, I'm going to multiply them by 0.7 to get 70%. I'm going to assume that I'm going to have to move, 1,400 units through ads. I would say I would start there at the very minimum. And so if we have $2,000 and we're going to move 1,400 units, not 14,000, 1,400, that gives us $1.42. That's still not even the full $2 to be able to move a unit. So my question is, where can I move a unit at this? And then if I take this and I divide it by 10, because I'm assuming a 10% conversion rate, I need to spend 14 cents cost per click to be able to move those. Again, super hard if you're going after rankings, ridiculously hard. So your question is, one, is it possible to maybe give a little bit of wiggle room in the budget? Not super sure on that. But the second thing is, where can I get low cost traffic that's going to convert? Your biggest friend here, and I'm going to tell you something that goes against, every general convention out there as far as, figuring out good keywords, going after exact match, going super targeted, pushing those hard for ranking. That's not your goal, because those strategies are going after ranking. Your goal is low cost sales and low cost visibility. So what I would recommend doing is I would start slower, lower, and shotgun it. I would recommend running a low bid automatic campaign. Now, again, this is going to be completely contrary to all the other launches out there, because again, our goal is not aggressive ranking. Our goal is broader low cost sales. So I would run a low bid auto, see what you can pick up. I would also run low bid category targeting. I would determine another kind of offshoot of a low bid category targeting would be, do you have any competitors that you've recognized? If you've been running ads on these before, what I would recommend doing is going into the search term reports, identifying where you've converted well in the past and where you've gotten really good low cost conversions. And then I would take those and I would plug those into your ad system. If you don't have that, then it might not make sense to do that, but I would look at that. You can also use expanded ASIN targeting, which can be good. Again, you're trying to figure out low cost, broad sweeping conversions is your goal. So I would look at that. I would look at if you have any sort of branded traffic, I would target your branded keywords and potentially other like products that you think you could actually do really well on kind of, again, like branded product targeting searches. Again, that's going to be low cost traffic, and it should, those tend to convert pretty well. So I would look at that. And then I would also look at, there are certain campaigns that we run. We call them, what is it? It's a single word broad match campaign. So essentially what you do is you go and you scrape the listing, you put it into a keyword, a keyword density tool. You essentially extract all of the single word keywords that are contained within the listing. You can also do this for some of your top competitors if you don't really have, maybe the listing fully fleshed out, which you should. You may not. So you can just basically, you're just grabbing all the single word relevant keywords. And then what you want to do is you want to throw these into a broad match. Now, typically what I recommend is putting a 20-cent bid on these. As I've kind of demonstrated, if you're going to sell like say 70% of these through ads, which even if you're cooking it, you might start to get somewhere to the 50-50 mark. If you're not absolutely blowing it out for ranking, I would expect 70% of these total sales to come from ads. So that gives you roughly, again, we're assuming a 10% conversion rate. If you get a better conversion rate, you can make those numbers even better and you can have more wiggle room in the ad cost. But I would recommend looking at maybe even setting like a 14-cent bid or a 15-cent bid. Again, depending on the market is going to determine how much traffic you can get at a 14-cent bid, even if it's a broader match type, even if it's only going to trigger those long tail search terms. But you might start them at 20 cents because maybe you can get cost per clicks of 14 cents. What you're going to do is you're basically going to throw in all of those keywords, and then you're going to put really low bids on all of those keywords. You do not want to increase those bids. Do not do it, even if the ad cost looks absolutely phenomenal. I wouldn't do it. If you find any search terms that are converting in these, I would then take them out and roll them into manual campaigns. And that's what I would do. I would do a very like broad sweeping, low bid, low cost strategy. And then just anything I find that is converting within my targets that I can make work, I would just be pumping that to no end. And that should get you to the profitability goals. Now, the only kind of iffy part in this is going to be this 20 weeks or less and having a specific deadline on this, because when you go low bid kind of broader, the market and what kind of volume you can get based on like what the search market is and what the bidding auction looks like in your space is going to determine how much traffic you can get from those strategies. So that would be my recommendation. I know it completely pivots on strategy and the whole ranking idea, but hopefully you find it really helpful. And again, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Oh, and by the way, if someone's listened to the end and you really like me answering this question, there will be a form below where you can go and submit your own Amazon advertising question, and you might get a custom video.